Going?
It's going well. How are you?
Doing really well.
Good, good. Really looking forward to today.
Oh, me as well.
Mm-hmm. I was just explaining on chat, some people were asking me. So for those of you who are already on with us, welcome. And I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be doing a webinar format. So you'll see Catherine and I, and then Catherine's going to bring you through her 4 principles. I won't give too much away from her great presentation. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A. So for the entire presentation, you're only going to be seeing us or Catherine's notes. However, feel free to chat away, and we'll try and answer your chats or chat amongst yourselves if you like. And then at the end, we'll be taking questions and answers. So if you wanted to put your questions in the Q&A, feel free, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. So yeah, give us a shout out. Tell us where you guys are coming from. We have a lot of attendees today. I don't know if any of you had joined our last seminar last Thursday, which was a great success. And I know I had a lot of feedback that it was valuable information. And so we were inspired to bring Catherine on board because we had a lot of conversations last time around digital and kind of what you need to do moving your business into the future. And of course, now we're all working from home. So, you know, what does that look like? And so it just seemed, you know, that it was kind of a natural to bring Catherine on board to help us with that. And I can tell you, I won't give too much away, but Catherine, although her title may sound geeky because she's all techie, she's actually really relatable and you know, speaks in terms that I think everybody can understand, you know, even though she is from the tech world. So that's really exciting because I know sometimes, Catherine, you must get this with your clients. People feel intimidated and.
Yeah, I mean, technology is just in general. I almost don't like using the word tech and technology because immediately people say like it's like taxes. It just feels like like can we not talk that? But it's what I hope to get across here is just maybe some people walk away, I hope, just a little bit overwhelmed, in the sense, not overwhelmed, but just that you feel like, okay, I learned a lot and I can kind of see everything that she's talking about, but that you just more see the leverage that technology can have in your business and
Right,
how it can be used.
right, right. Yeah, that's, I mean, I know that I'm probably a little bit more in tune with technology than most, but it's still daunting and it's ever changing. So it's really tough, you know, if you're trying to, like we said in the e-newsletter, the e-blast that went out, you know, you're trying to manage your own business and kind of stay in where your skill set is and your, I guess they call it zone of genius. And so it's hard to do that when you're trying to navigate through the, you know, all the technology that's needed to manage your business as well. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, it's great to have lots of people there to support you. So give us a shout out. Let us know where you're all coming from. We have quite a few of you online now. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Let me just move that up here. Oh, there we go. Oh, we've got Tracy from Dundas, Ontario. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Tracy. Do we have anybody on the West Coast joining us today? Oh, we've got, Raleigh, North Carolina. Cool. Nicole from Oakville, Halifax, Cleveland. Felicia from Burlington. Hey, Felicia, that's where I live. Linda from Montreal. Wow, Irvine. Yeah, I guess we do have the West Coast joining us today. Oakville, Cincinnati, Scottsdale, Arizona. Hey, Kathy. And then we have Christine. I know Christine. How are you? Christine DaCosta. She, otherwise known as Glamma Mama. She's a friend to JF, and she has her own business as well, and actually does a fair bit online. So I'm glad she's joining us. Yeah, that's great. Nice to see you, Christine. And then Sandra from Interior Lifestyles, Christina from Kingston.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lots. So
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome. Oh, Southlake, Texas, San Francisco. Hey, Marianne. Janice from Calgary. Amparo in Etobicoke. Wow, that's just so great. So many
Yeah.
people. Wonderful. Well, we'll give it just a couple more minutes. We still have a bunch of people coming in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce Catherine. And Lynn, I'm going to pass it over to her because she is going to be the one who is going to be educating you all. So just so you know, please leave any questions that you have. This is a webinar format for those who have just joined us. And so you're going to see Catherine and I, and then we cannot see you. And obviously you cannot see each other. So, but feel free to leave some notes in the chat if you just want to kind of shout out, let us know you're here, where you're from. Any questions and answers would be better if you leave them in the Q&A section here, and then we're going to address that at the end. So, oh, we have New York. Awesome. Toronto. Perfect. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us. Take my glasses off. I don't need to read at the moment. So my name is Lisa Nickel, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for JF Fabrics. And, you know, we know that this is a very difficult time. It's a difficult time for us at JF. As you know, we're not shipping. And we have a kind of a skeleton staff, if you will, that are working behind the scenes. But we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot about technology, you know, doing a lot of research into what it's going to look like, doing business kind of the new way. And so as we're learning, we want to bring you along with us. And so watch for more and more of these webinars so that, you know, we can kind of learn together and grow together and hopefully all come out of this much stronger. So with that said, I'd like to introduce you to Catherine Reid. Catherine is an entrepreneur. She graduated from the University of Nevada. Of course, she's a bit of a slacker. She only graduated with like a double major. So she has a degree in an MIS and an MBA. So that's like management of information. And she is a mother of 3, 2, 4, and 6, I think, Catherine, right?
Good memory. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they're adorable. I've seen pictures of them. And she's just super busy. She spent over 10 years working with small businesses to help them, you know, work remotely. And then she'll probably tell you a little bit about this, but she decided to go out and go on her own because she saw a real kind of niche in the market and thought she'd capitalize on that. And so she's the owner of, I'm going to have her explain what this means. I had to ask her, but she'll explain to you. Advai Fig and The Digital Mama, which is more of kind of a blog that Catherine has. And then, you know, really overall, I've worked with Catherine. She's just so great. She's flexible, you know, really easy to work with. And like I said, she doesn't have that tech talk. She really does understand how to take what's in her brain and have us understand it in a really simple, easy way. So that said, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine, and she will take it from here.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen as well as I get started. All right. Does everyone see my screen okay?
I certainly do.
Lisa, does that go through okay? All right. And then if you have any, if there's any comments, just let me know if there's any questions, and I'm going to just throw this over here as well.
Yeah, everyone sees your screen, so we're good.
Okay, awesome. And I'm just going to get rid of that. All right. So I'm really excited to be here. This is by far my favorite thing to talk about is technology. And like I mentioned before, I'm going to cover a lot, but the goal is really just to kind of give you a really like a 30,000 foot view of what's possible with technology, and that you walk away and kind of have a chance afterwards to just kind of think, okay, how can this be applied to my business, and where are we in tech, and what does this all mean? And then obviously, we're here to answer any questions that you might have as well. And before I get into, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Advai Fig. To give some more background on myself, I'm a mother of three. And like Lisa said, I have a 2, 4, and 6-year-old. I'm married to a US Air Force dentist and have been in tech for about 10 years. And just to kind of show like how I got here, my original background was in health promotion. I studied health promotion. I was a corporate wellness coach just out of school, and ended up kind of falling into an IT role. And I fell in love with this kind of intersection between business and technology and systems and productivity and those types of things. And I remember I moved after that, having that job, which was just a phenomenal job for a few years, followed, my husband, and he went to dental school. And I had, in a matter of 3 months, left this job, moved 1,000 miles away, was staying home, had a baby in the NICU for 5 weeks. And all of a sudden was just sitting there one day thinking, like, where am I? Like, how did this, like, who am I? What is my life doing? How did I end up here? And thinking, okay, this is the time that at the time I was struggling with postpartum depression, just kind of all these changes that were taking place, and decided I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life. Almost like that moment that I had. And that started what became now a nearly 7-year journey into my passion being technology, figuring out how to help other, parents in similar situations, or just anybody who's trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing and what we're trying to do, and the help that we're trying to give, and the businesses we're trying to grow, and how to reach people when we might be moving, when we might not have a physical office location, when we're trying to start online businesses. And it became now what's called Advai Fig. And to kind of explain the name a little bit, is Advai comes from a word I came up with like 20 years ago. I was 12 years old, starting a business, and Ada comes from adore, and Vai from vita, which means to love life in Latin. And then Fig comes from a book or a poem called The Bell Jar. It's kind of a solemn book, but in it, the author, Sylvia Plath, talks about she's sitting at this crotch of a fig tree, and she looks up, and there's all of these figs, and they beckon her this wonderful future of, one is a sailor, and one's a artist, and one's a mother, and one's a spouse, and goes through this list. And she sits there and watches all of these figs kind of drop away, trying to figure out which fig to go after. And it hit me because I remember thinking, like, I just need to figure out what I'm trying to accomplish and go for it and do it. And that's what Advai Fig became, was my passion, as lame as it may sound, is technology. It's this, how do you figure out technology and how do you use it? And part of it became, how can I help other people kind of figure out their fig, their mission that they're trying to do. So before I go any further, I would love to just kind of pose a question of, what is your fig? If you want to share, if you feel comfortable sharing in the comments, what is it that you feel like, yes, we're trying to make businesses, we're trying to make money, but what's the mission, the overall goal that you're trying to accomplish?
Just while we're waiting for some people to comment, we have somebody commented from impeccably done. You have a beautiful family. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Let's see. So, so Felicia is saying that she wants to continue working with her clients safely. That's kind of her fig. That's her goal. And Tracy is saying her mission is to transform lives by designing and decorating interior spaces.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so awesome.
I love that.
I want to be the go-to person in my industry, long-term view. That's from Sharon. And Janine says, trying to figure out how to work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
Oh, Janine, I hear you.
That's what we're trying to do, right? I love that.
Absolutely. Great. Oh, we've got one more here. We're trying to change our shop at home business to begin as a virtual business and be profitable at it, of course.
Awesome.
And then Andrea says she agrees with Janine. Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. Amen. Right.
Great.
That's like,
Thank you for sharing, everyone.
thank you. I love that. So I want to hit on just now, like where we are in terms of kind of the digital landscape of COVID-19 and everything going on is, I can't take credit for this, but someone made the comment, we need to stop social distancing and focus on physical distancing. And with everything going on right now, I always think we live in such an incredible time. I mean, what's happening is, it's horrible, and businesses are being affected, and people and families, and there's so much things that are so hard right now. But then I think, last week I played bingo with my kids played bingo with their cousins, and my mom facilitated it, because we had this Zoom call that we were all in this Zoom group chat doing bingo. I FaceTime with my grandma. My daughter's doing gymnastics lessons through YouTube. And we're connecting with clients, with different people, that while this is so difficult, we also have a huge connection that technology is allowing us to accomplish. Is there, I just love to hear ideas. Does anyone have, maybe an example of, or Lisa, if you have anything of how is maybe technology helping you kind of connect with this time of what I would rather call physical distancing?
Well, actually, this is amazing. And, bringing this, and I feel bad that we didn't think about this sooner. I mean, I'd used Zoom before, but not in this way. And maybe people wouldn't have been as open to it or had the time for it, maybe. So, but I feel that this is just so wonderful, and something that we will continue to do to bring value to our customers. And also, even with our customers in certain segments or in certain categories, bringing them together to meet one another from all parts of North America to share ideas and stuff. I just think that's so brilliant, and something that we'll continue to do.
So I love that. And I think that that's a great point about bringing people. We're connecting with people all over the world, right? We just saw that list of, so often with businesses and physical businesses, we kind of niche ourselves geographically. So I'm going to be this person up in Northern Idaho, and there's no one else around me that as a designer, versus now we're able to niche on what our, maybe a passion is around a specific industry or specific style, or, specific type of demographic that would be a little bit different than just geography. And how great is that? I think that's amazing.
Right.
So let me jump into challenges that we're having, and feel free to add challenges if you think of any. But what I found talking to different clients and other business owners is that there's two key challenges that are happening on this digital kind of landscape. And one is, yes, we have incredible technology, but it takes a lot of patience sometimes, and the figuring out the how-to of it all, and how do I take all these different tools and make them work together. And that's a big part, right? It's understanding the tools and how to do it all. And then the second one being, we're kind of changing. I mean, I'm not hiding the fact that I'm in a bedroom right now, right? We're changing the expectations of work. And in a way, it's kind of cool though, right? Like we are trying to run businesses in the midst of chaos. Our time schedules for a lot of people are completely different. Maybe you're homeschooling kids, maybe you're running in different hours, but in a way, it's also means that we're able to see a side of each other's humanness that we didn't before. And you can connect with clients in kind of new ways and make those and build those relationships a little bit differently. So I've actually loved it, but we're going to talk mostly on the first one of how to do those things and what tools we should be using. And before I jump into that, I want to give a really brief Tech 101. This is the most technical I think I'll get, but I think it's so important to understand this concept. So how did we get here? And I don't mean COVID and everything that's going on there, but more in terms of how did we get to where we are in technology? And let me switch. I'm going to switch my screens. Do you see a little whiteboard, Lisa?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from a technology.
Catherine, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
I just want to let some people who joined on a little bit later. Thank you. Put your questions in the questions and answer section, and Catherine and I are going to address those at the very end. So please continue to do so. Thanks. Sorry, Catherine.
No, thank you. Okay, so from a technical standpoint, where we all are right now, not just from Zoom, but also just the fact that we're starting businesses and growing businesses is unheard of 15, 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. And a big part of that, just from a discussion standpoint, is think of what it took to start a business 15 years ago. And you would have this is an office, not a house, but you would have this physical office that you would have to have. And in your office, you would have, employees, and each one would have a desktop computer. And then you'd have this room. and I'm not an artist in any way, so no judgment, but you would have this room that was called your server room. It was an IT closet, and no one went in there except from like guys in jeans and black polos, and they messed with all this stuff that no one wanted to touch. But it was the core of your business. It was your email. It was your website. It was how you ran software. It was literally how businesses were running, 15 years ago. And what happened that was really cool in the last 10 years is that this right here moved somewhere else. And from a technical standpoint, it went to what's called a data center. That's the most tech term I'll say. But what it was companies, think of Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all these types of companies said, hey, instead of you having to have this entire office and a server, you don't have to have any of that. We're going to move all this to now what's called services. You're going to pay a monthly cost, and you, with one phone or with one laptop, can just pay monthly to use what you need and build a business from anywhere and grow your team as you need it and scale and buy more, licenses as you need it. And it meant that you could get something like, which we'll hit on in a second, G Suite for Business, which is enterprise level software for $6 a month for one person. I mean, and I think maybe at first it's like, but it's incredible. I mean, really from a standpoint of, my favorite story is when I first started doing this about 7 years ago, I was working with a guy who their biggest competitor, this is a pretty large, 50 plus employee company making electric bikes. And their biggest competitor was a one-man shop literally out of his garage who was what's called drop shipping, which meant he was buying electric bikes from somebody else who was shipping it, but he was marketing it and doing everything himself and having clients. And that one person could do everything because of technology that these large companies were struggling with. And so just kind of thinking about how we can scale and grow our businesses. All right, and then I'm gonna switch back 1 second. And Lisa, any questions so far from the chat?
Not from the, people are just making comments. Christine says she loves the saying, working smarter, not harder. And I think everybody is in general agreement with that. And then Sharon says she's loving it because she's able to actually spend quality time with vendors, like with people like us who are doing webinars and so on. So she's learning a lot.
Awesome. All right, and then do you see my screen again with the?
Oh, I have one more question. So impeccably done is asking, what is G Suite for Business?
Thank you for asking that. We're gonna hit on that actually in P number. Let me move this. So we're gonna hit on these 4 Ps. This is what I'm gonna go through. And productivity is all about G Suite for Business. So I'll make sure to hit on that and talk about that a little bit more.
Wonderful.
All right, so this is the core of what we're gonna kind of talking about with the 4 Ps of what I call the systems in your business. And if you think about, the growth of having a business, you initially start out with, you have a product, you have a service of some sort, but until you start selling it, it's more of a hobby. And then you start to sell it, and now you're a business. And if you want to scale, that's where your systems come in. So how are you using software, or do you have specific systems in place that would actually let you grow, that would let you work smarter so that you have more time to do other things? And that's really what these 4 Ps are going to hit on. So people is going to be about, how do you build remote relationships when you're not in person? Productivity, we're going to talk a little bit about Google. So it's G Suite for Business, which is by Google. Process is all your software. And then promotion is, how do you get awareness? Your website, things like that. So people, this is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated aspects of our systems. And especially right now with everything that's going on, we need to be building high quality relationships with the people that we work with, whether that's vendors, clients, or our team members. And, we think of the interactions that it takes to build trust with somebody that's going to do business with you. And a lot of times in marketing, we'll say it takes, 7, 8, 9 interactions for someone to build trust with you. But that's a little bit of a spectrum from, if I shake your hand, if I meet you in person, versus if I'm only sending you emails or advertisements, how quickly can I build trust? How quickly can you see my true intent? And so the more we can emulate an in-person, face-to-face interaction, the quicker we can build that trust, the quicker that we can have an authentic relationship. And so that's really what people is going around. And so what I like to think of it as, I want to do things like have video as much as possible. I want to emulate things like small talk. You know, a lot of times we jump on a call and we're immediately jumping into the business. Would we do that if we were in person? Right now, having virtual lunches. So if I was going to go take someone out to lunch, now this isn't, you know, some places it's a little bit different depending on what the restrictions are, but can I buy food to get delivered to your house and have lunch with you virtually? And I'm taking you out to lunch. Sending gifts. If I was going to buy you a personalized gift, can I go on Etsy, get an individual personalized gift because I know you as a client, and send that to you through Etsy, and you're going to get it. And so it's anything that you would do in person. How can we emulate that virtually? Any thoughts on that? So is there anything that you found that you've been able to do this, building relationships virtually? Feel free to comment if you have any, or we can just take questions after.
I love the idea, the virtual lunch. I think that's so clever. I mean, we've been doing these kind of virtual cocktail parties and all that kind of thing, but to actually have it delivered and then have lunch together, how amazing is that? And now, you know, I look at it and think, wow, I can do that with my, you know, all of my customers from overseas. You know,
Yes.
business in tons of business in Asia, where now, you know, I can virtually break bread with my customers, which is really awesome.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. And then the last thing, you know, hitting on with video though too, is it doesn't have to be live. Like so often we think, you know, we're going to have a live call, a live lunch, things like that. But, you know, we work with a lot of clients, and I know other clients that do, of just being comfortable sending a video of a recap of a meeting you just had. And saying like, you know, here's, because it's easier to watch a video. It's easier for you to know what you talked about, recap notes. But if your client says, oh, I have this question, and they're sending you an email, can you jump on a screen share of some sort, or even on your phone, you know, it can be casual, just make a quick video and send it to them as a response. And now they're actually seeing you. It's one more interaction that's more like being in person.
Smart.
All right, so I'm going to go on to productivity. So this is the greatest asset in your business, in my opinion. This is your kind of core software that's going to run your business. And when I say G Suite, it's from Google. It's called G Suite for Business. And if you have a Gmail email, so, you know, at gmail.com, or if you've ever used Google Calendar, anything from Google, this is their business version of that. And so this is going to be, and it doesn't have to be Google. Microsoft has this as well. It's called Microsoft 365. A company called Zoho has this. It's called Zoho One. And so different companies have this, but the idea behind it is that it is your communications tool that you're going to do things like calendar, email, Drive, which is going to be things like your Word, how you write your Word documents or spreadsheets. It's just that entire suite. And what I like about G Suite for Business is, I think a lot of times if you have Google, you might only use their email. Maybe you use their calendar. And if you move over to their business, which you might not realize that it exists, there is a business version, and it costs $6 a month to start out. And if you do have it, you know, kind of thinking about, do you use all the tools that are available to you? So thinking through an example, if you only had G Suite for Business, you had no other tools, you could have a client still that you scheduled a meeting using Google Calendar, and you created what's called Google Meet, which is a lot like Zoom. So you get a little link, you can send it to them, and you can have a virtual phone call right off. And those can actually go up to 200, depending on the plan you have, 250 attendees can come to that meeting. You can then use your Google Sheets, so like a spreadsheet, to track expenses or maybe clients and projects that you might have, or to-do list. And then you could use Google Drive, in which you can create folders, and you can have folders for every client. And those folders can be shared with a client that's not in your company. So now all of a sudden you've created this tool that says, hey, here's a folder for the project we're working on. Why don't you upload pictures of things that you like? And then Google Forms. Google Forms would let you create like an intake form, and you can choose all the questions you want, send a link for them to complete the form, and then it automatically just gets sent over to a Google Sheet, or it could go to their folder. Now you don't have to understand all of this, like how to do it. It's just to kind of think through ideas of, you know, what sometimes we feel like we need to have all the right tools and we need to have everything figured out. But if you just have a general, what we call productivity suite, so many of those things are already built into that tool. So let me, and then just a quick, more of a general question, feel free to add in chat, are you using this already? So how many of you are using maybe G Suite for Business or Microsoft or Office 365? And then we'll hit on some of that a little bit after as well. And I'm kind of curious, just if you are using it, Office 365, awesome.
Right. Yeah. And Annette, I don't know if you saw that, but Annette was saying just kind of what you explained, which is she had G Suite, but she really didn't know, she wasn't using all and didn't know of all of its capabilities. So
The different tools, absolutely. Office 365. And I saw two that are saying Office 365. I love Office 365 as well. And they have some cool things too. They have Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft Teams is similar to what I'm saying with Meet, where it does a lot of things, but you can create these teams that can jump on virtual calls. You can create places where you can upload files together. You can collaborate. They're really cool and pretty sophisticated. And the key thing before I move on to hit on for both of these is they're completely cloud-based. So again, that idea of the cloud, where the more you can, I don't save things on my computer. I rarely do. And what that allows me is I can literally lose my computer, drop my computer, go find a new computer, log into google.com, and I completely run my entire business and ready to go. And I'm not concerned about if files are there or if my desktop or folders look a certain way.
Nicole is saying this is great information because she was only using it for email. She had no idea it had all this capability.
Yes.
Now, I just want to go back because we had a question. Is Google Drive like Dropbox?
Yes. Yep. And there are some cases where you still might want Dropbox, and it's a little bit depending on the situation, but Google Drive is pretty sophisticated, where we've worked with clients with 1,000 employees who use Google Drive completely. And what's cool about it is you can have things that are only available to specific people or internally, or you can share it with a link to a specific client, or you can make it public. You can just have it be a link where if I have that link, I can access that document. And yeah, so I mean, there's different ways, but they're similar. Google Photos. Someone said that they'd be lost without Google Photos. As a side note, you can back up pictures on your phone, for example, to Google Photos by itself. So if you're taking pictures for clients and you're worried about that phone not being backed up, you can connect that to Google Photos. So awesome stuff.
Wow, this is all great information.
All right, so I'm going to hit on my third P of processes. This is my favorite P. Can I say that? About your systems. This is all about your systems, about your workflow, and about working smarter, not harder. No matter, there are things that if you can systemize, meaning if you can figure out what in your business you do the same every single time, technology should be able to replace that. And your time should be dedicated to providing the direct value to your customer. The things that make it a custom experience for that customer is what you should be doing. Right? So now you're not worried about how much time a week are you spending on just filler stuff versus providing actually value to what you're trying to accomplish. And one of my favorite authors, his name is Rory Baden. He wrote a book called Procrastinate on Purpose. And he talks about we need to eliminate, automate, delegate, and procrastinate. And he says, there's nothing more inefficient than doing effectively that which should not be done at all. So often we fall into things like, oh, I'm doing it so efficient, but what are we actually trying to do? And so when we're looking at your systems, we try and figure out what's your workflow? Like how do you get from point A to get awareness to point B of the customer's happy and has the service that they've asked for? And so that's where we want to eliminate the things that shouldn't be done. We automate with our software. We delegate things that are not our core competency. Meaning if it's not something that's specific to the value we provide, we should be hiring other people, because you're spending time to learn a skill that you'll probably only do once. And then we procrastinate, meaning you prioritize the things in order that they should be done. And so that's really the concept of processes in general. Now, this side, don't be overwhelmed with how many names are on here, but just to kind of give you an idea of the flow of some tools. So again, processes are all about your software. So when you sit down and you were to write out in just a blank piece of paper, and actually physically write it. Don't try and do it on a computer, but if you can physically write on a whiteboard or anything like that, what are you doing? Okay, I want to meet somebody, but now I need to do that virtually. So I'm going to meet somebody through an introduction virtually. And then I'm going to build that relationship with them. So I need to keep track of what I've done with them in the past. And then I'm going to schedule a call with them, and I'm going to have that call. And then I'm going to provide some type of proposal. And then I'm going to do a project for them. Just literally just writing out that process. What does it look like? And so this right here is an example of that, where tools like MailChimp and ActiveCampaign help you get emails for leads, people that are interested in your business. And then you build that relationship. You send them, you want to know, who did I send a gift from Etsy on? Who did I have lunch with? Who did I buy lunch for this month? And so you want to track that in what's called the CRM, which is your customer management system. And tools like Pipedrive and Insightly do that. Then you have a discovery call. You have them go to a link and click on a page, and then they see a calendar. And there's a tool called Calendly that does that. And they can just click it and schedule a call with you and have a Zoom call or have a Google Meet call and meet with them virtually. And then afterwards, you're going to send them a proposal. You're going to be able to do invoicing through tools like Wave and Square. And then you're going to do the project. You're going to do the work through tools like Asana, which is a project management tool. Podia is a digital content tool. So you can make mini courses. You could do like a membership program where every month you provide maybe your own webinar or some type of content. And then Ticket Spice is a tool that sells tickets. So if you were going to have an online event, tools like Ticket Spice can help you sell those tickets. Now, there's kind of two models for your software. You either do it where you piecemeal things together, or you use more of an all-in-one. And that's where things like MyDoma, Studio Designer, Ivy, they're going to be more of an all-in-one tool. And then you just have to kind of pick a couple tools so that they don't do. And again, the key here is not to feel overwhelmed with there's so many different tools, but just to think, what are you trying to do? Let's find the tools to match that process. That's as simple as it can be for you, but that are still scalable, that will let you grow when you're ready to. All right. Any thoughts on that, Lisa, from your side?
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. I feel like I should wait and let the
Okay.
But just really, I mean, I guess we spoke about all the CRM and I think a lot of small businesses and solopreneurs and so on, to your point, they're really kind of doing everything. And so they don't feel they can be as sophisticated in, kind of in measurement and learning more about their customers through AI and all of these other areas. So can you speak to that a little bit about, I mean, a lot of these tools, I guess, help them do that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think it starts. Sometimes we get recommended a tool and we just go out and get it. And then it's almost like we build our business around that tool. And there's a benefit to that too, sometimes, because you don't want to get overly customized in your processes.
Right.
But sometimes I think it's more important to really figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. Like write out those processes, like really map out a flow. And if you don't know what that flow is, start there. Let's kind of like figure out what that flow is. And then there are a lot of tools out there that can be overwhelming, but I think what I mentioned before, where it does kind of start with G Suite for Business, because if you can't, and from a technical standpoint, a little bit, software, all these great, cool softwares in the background is a spreadsheet. I mean, it's just a database, it's a spreadsheet. So if you can't map out what it is you're trying to accomplish by drawing it and using a Google sheet, like a spreadsheet, there's a good chance you're going to struggle when you start to try and figure out. And that's where people usually get frustrated. They can't figure out how to use the, what the tool does, but it's maybe because you're not completely clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish. What is the flow that you're trying to do? And so if you can start there, and then the other key thing when you're picking out software, if you're going to go out and get software, is the software needs to be trustworthy. You should have a general idea of how they're hosting their data. Where does it live? Who owns the data? It should be your data. These types of tools, when I play G Suite for Business, when I'm paying them $6 a month, it's to use the tool. It's an interface for me to use my data, but that data should be mine. And then that kind of on that level, if you want to switch into a different tool, if you start with MailChimp because it's simple, and then you decide, well, I actually want something that has a little bit more sophistication, and you move to a new tool, it should be super simple just to go in, click a button called export, pull out everything into a spreadsheet, and then move to a new tool. And so start small and simple with basically what you're trying to accomplish, and then doing it in a way that you can always keep growing.
Right. I heard a stat, and I've heard this a lot of, people predicting that companies, regardless of the size, who aren't using some level of artificial intelligence will ultimately, not do well or not be as successful as the ones who are. And I don't think that has to be so super sophisticated.
Yeah.
But, I do think it's important. We spoke last week about these designers and, you know, our customers, making sure that they decide who they want their customer to be first.
Yeah.
And then, so the brilliance of some of this information that you can gather through all of these different, you know, companies and software and so on, is that you can, you know, use the data of what you've got from your most successful customers, and that becomes, you know, the goal. And then all the demographics you've discovered from your successful customers, you can now go find more of the same, once you've gathered all that data. And
Yes.
and that seems overwhelming. I'm getting lots of things here. I don't know if you're probably reading them too, Catherine, or people are like, oh my God, I
They're
never knew
coming through.
all this. Help, help. So I'll let you continue.
No, I love it. And I do think, you know, technology moves so fast. And I've had clients come like, oh no, there's a place for AI and artificial intelligence. There's a place for so many analytics and so much information that we can collect. So depending on where you are in your business is going to decide that a little bit. And I think you make a really good point there, though, of when you just start out and map out your process and start networking one-to-one, and you're kind of growing, it seems like, oh, I want to be doing all these things, but you don't have the data to maybe use AI. You don't know what to be targeting towards. And so that stuff is there when you get there. But I think I've also seen other people where they jump into something that has all this high tech technology like AI and 4D printing and just, you know, name it, that it becomes kind of a little overwhelming depending on where you are and what you're ready for.
Right.
So awesome. Let me jump onto the fourth P. So this is promotion. And this is a general idea of kind of going back to, we're transitioning from a physical world to the virtual world, and outside of COVID-19, just in general, the movement that we're making in business. And think about your online presence as the new storefront. And if you had on Main Street, you had a building, a store or an office, and I was going to walk into it, what vibe should I immediately be picking up? You know, are you a Home Depot store, or are you a toy store? Like, I should know by the colors that I'm seeing, by kind of the music that's playing, potentially whatever vibe that I have there. And so that kind of idea behind it is that we're moving all of these traditional ways of promotion, our storefront, into these virtual ways. And how do we do that, and what does it mean? And so a good example of this would be taking I used to work at a store called Bed Bath & Beyond. And so we would have the big question. Yeah, I worked there for a couple of years. And the big question was, what was on the end caps? And so if you ever worked retail, your end caps are like when you're walking down the hall, what do we want them to see when they're walking down the aisle? And so I like to look at it as, you know, your storefront is your website. Your end caps are your landing pages and your call to actions. So that when I go to your website, you might have 10 programs, but if you show me 10 programs, I'm not going to know what you want me to do. There's too much action going on. But if you say, the most important thing is I want to get you on my newsletter. So here is a, you know, sign up for my newsletter, type in your email, one call to action, that's your end cap. If there's something I can download, things like that. So those would be things like on your landing pages. Your website is going to be that storefront. And then going to these other models like networking, traditional networking groups. In the US here, we have a group called BNI. And those are all more in person. I'm going to go virtual. Facebook groups are doing phenomenal right now. I mean, I'm seeing more and more have Facebook Live groups. They're trying to figure out ways to network with people. Social media obviously is a huge player there, where you can start branding yourself through social media, going from in-person events, anything that you would do in person, how can you use Zoom and tools like this to do virtually? Physical products, something that and obviously this is a little bit restricted to things like manufacturing. I mean, there's definitely some industries that are getting hit a little bit different, but are there ways that you could still say, okay, I used to have this physical product and it was a planner, or it was some type of, you know, planning and design book. Can I make that digital now and make it so that you can sell it as a one time, or maybe it's some type of course or a video interaction, digital products. Traditional email marketing used to be, I have a list of a ton of people and I just email the same thing. Think about how we used to mail things like mailers, where I used to buy not me, but I mean, companies used to buy lists and they would just mail out some, you know, 20% off coupon to 1,000 people. They had no idea if they were going to be interested or not. You just mail it to everybody in a zip code. That was the biggest distinguishment. And now we have custom experiences. So for example, Active Campaign, it allows you to create a list and then you tag your individual people with certain things. Okay, these people like this style. This person likes this color. This person likes into this, whatever you want to call it, in different things like that. They're really interested in business design, but not home design. And you can start tagging them in different ways so that when you email them on certain tags. And they're actually having almost a custom experience than someone else with different tags, even though it's the same business. And then lastly, talking about metrics, you might have a metric of, I want to reach a certain number of people. And now we're shifting to, we can get analytics on when someone goes to that landing page. And comparing it to traditional, when someone used to walk by a retail end cap, now we have information on, well, how old was that person when they walked by it? What did they touch? What did they look at the longest on that end cap? Why did they walk away? Did their kid drag them away? And that's why they didn't buy it, and they almost bought it and then they didn't. And we're actually able to capture more analytics like that. All right, so that is my last P. I know that's a ton of information, so thank you so much. We're going to do Q&A in just 1 minute. Lisa, did you have any other final thoughts?
No, I mean, in general, I know that people, I think the biggest message that Catherine is saying here is you need to look at all of this and understand what the capabilities are in a very general way of all of these tools. But I think at the end of the day, you need to be, using some of these tools to drive your business forward because, I mean, we were kind of headed that way anyway. Obviously, Catherine's had this business well before COVID, but now we've really all been thrown into it. So, now is the time that, you need to take some time and look at all of this stuff and try and navigate through it. And really focus on what works for you. And as Catherine said, someone said in the chat here, start simply, right? Because
Absolutely.
if you do too much, you're going to be overwhelmed and not do any of it, I think. Okay, so I'm going to start with questions. Okay, so we start with how are others dealing with going into clients' homes? To measure and decide about fabrics and colors and so on. So, if you guys want to add any of that on the chat, that was from Esther, and she's just wondering how everyone's dealing with, doing those types of functions from your standpoint as a designer. I can just chime in here, but, Catherine, you had said, and it never dawned on me, and I'm sure most of the people with us today, to actually have a virtual lunch. So, there are ways to adapt these traditional ways where you'd go in and you'd measure someone's window and you'd, I'm sure it's just a little bit of thinking out of the box, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, whenever, and it's a little bit different depending on exactly what you're doing, but anytime you can use video to walk a client through something or to see what they're doing and, kind of guide them because they're trying to figure this out too. And if you can find ways to connect with them where they say, okay, now put the camera this way and show it this way or measure this way, you can kind of guide them through that. Potentially there's something there as well.
Yeah, I do think that, a lot can be done that way. And actually we're getting people weighing in here saying they have the client measure the space. Someone saying, I'm not doing measurements right now. And someone's offering email and Zoom consults.
Nice.
And yeah, a lot of people are actually having the customers measure while they're on the phone with them. So whether it's like FaceTime or, Zoom or whatever, while they're on the call to make sure whatever it is they're measuring, they're taking the measurements properly. So I think, that's really great. And, you could actually kind of get ahead of that and you talk about the web page. I guess people could kind of have a how to measure right on your web page, right? And then
what a great opt-in too. Opt-in meaning you provide something of value for an email just to kind of start building an email list. If I went to a designer website or page that said, how to measure, what to be concerned about, or different things like that, and something that I could give you my email and in return get that would be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. We have someone here saying we use Measures. It's an app and have sent
I've
that.
heard of that. That's a great one.
Yeah. So they're, oh, great ideas, guys. Thank you
Great
very
idea.
much. Okay, so that is that. And then thanks. Oh, Salima's here. She's saying thanks for doing the presentation. It's such an important topic. Jacqueline Little hopes to get larger projects when this is all done. So I think she was responding to an earlier question that you had asked.
Okay.
Create awareness of how we help clients keep their projects rolling during oh, yeah.
So some are answers. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And then, oh, do you have an app or program that is simple to use to create mood boards for clients? Is anyone using a particular app that's easy for mood boards? Or I don't know, Catherine, if you know, it's really more maybe specific to design, but.
Yeah, that one I don't have off the top of my head. I'd have to maybe look into some things and could provide some options.
Yeah, someone else says, I also need a good mood board. Well, you know what? Oh,
I know they're there though. I actually do know that they do exist, but I couldn't name
Morfolio, I think, is one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Morfolio is one. And then also, my marketing team and myself, PicMonkey is another one.
This is like creating the mood board. Is that what they're asking?
Yeah. Sample.
Okay. Canva. I saw someone Canva. I think Canva is very user friendly.
Okay.
And it's great for if you don't have a background in a lot of design work, it works really well.
Perfect.
Or if you do.
Yeah. Oh, good. There's lots of ones here in the chat. So Canva, mood board. Great. I think that answers the question. And then how do you create a successful following on social media and a YouTube channel? I'm going to just chime in for a second, and then I'm going to pass it over to you. Really, I think the most important thing Catherine said earlier, which is your brand has to reflect in every touch point. So whether that is, Instagram or Facebook, people need to know who you are and what you're all about and what your aesthetic is from all of those different touch points, your website included. So that's first and foremost, in order to be successful and attract the client that you want. And then, I think that the best thing, Catherine, are there social media groups that kind of keep people up to date on what the latest is? Because, it changes so frequently. We have ones that we use. Are there suggestions that people could follow? Because sometimes it's all about video right now, and
Yeah. Could I send a list to you of some recommendations?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can pass that on, and the thing is that just to kind of maybe step back a little bit, it depends a little bit on your brand if you should be doing social media, or I should say what type of social media and YouTube you should be doing. Because I do think that there's a push right now that if you're, depending on where you are in your business, you don't have to hit every social media outlet to start out. You don't have to do, YouTube if it doesn't fit what you're trying to do. And so I think one important question is, are you trying to become an influencer? Do you want to get into public speaking? Do you want to have, almost like a comparison of like a really, really expensive restaurant versus like a McDonald's, where like both are doing really well, but it's a slightly different experience, and neither of them are right or wrong. It's just, if you're playing football, you're going to get money because thousands of people are coming, versus if you're doing one-on-one consulting. And so first, maybe start there, because I know really, really successful service-based businesses who have zero social media following or very little. And they'll just do like a video every now and then because it is important to have consistent branding, and they know that. And so they're not doing every outlet. One of the IT services company that I used to consult with, they pretty much only did Facebook and Instagram. They weren't concerned about having a huge Twitter, but they posted things on those regularly. But what they did post was always intentional, and it matched their branding. And they weren't just trying to like throw out everything everywhere. But on the other side of that, if you're an influencer and you're looking for touch points and you really want to get your name out there, that's a different strategy. It's a completely different strategy. And So in that case, in terms of being successful, my only thoughts are, be a little bit different, try and figure out what value you're creating and make sure that it's kind of in matching with what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to be an influencer, if you want to move that way.
Okay, thank you. Similar question. Let's see. And then, Kathy says she actually just started using Google Suite, but she did have Microsoft 365 and wasn't really using everything they had. It's just all about understanding both, I guess, and which one. Do you have a preference one way or another?
If you, I do. My preference is G Suite for Business, and Office 365 is incredible. They actually just renamed themselves. They're now Microsoft 365. They have some naming issues, I think. But my thing with them is if you are very partial to using traditional Office products, like you want to use Word, not Docs. If your clients are needing Excel, then you're probably going to be in the Microsoft 365 world.
Right.
And if you have more of an opinion about, I want it to be on my computer, I want Word on my computer, not a online version of it, then you're going to probably be in Microsoft 365. The reason I like G Suite is that it's a much cleaner experience, and it's got a smaller learning curve, I feel like, for people who are just trying to just use if they're just trying to use an Office product such as Word, now in the cloud, it just feels like there's not as much of a learning curve. The administrative behind the scenes is a little bit easier. And once you kind of get set up and get used to it, you really could run a lot of it by yourself.
Right. It just dawned on me before we continue on with the questions, I would love for everybody before they sign off to hear your offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me can you still see my screen? Am I still sharing?
Yeah,
this? Okay, sorry, I should have stopped sharing. Didn't realize that. I just wanted to throw out real quick that, this is a lot of information. A lot of people running online businesses are struggling with this, trying to figure out what tool to use. And there's essentially 3 things that you can do, right? You cannot do anything. If you are running a service-based business, it's more traditional and it's working for you, and you enjoy always being in person, and you're okay kind of just waiting until some of this kind of goes and calms down a little bit, then you don't have to go virtual right now. You don't have to have some type of online course if you're not ready for that. But if you are, then one option is you learn it yourself. YouTube has incredible resources. You can just Google, how do I set up a Zoom meeting? How do I use Google Meet? And you can start kind of learning those tools on your own. My only thought there is that there's a little bit of a rabbit hole. And if you're never going to use that skill again, then obviously going back to Roy Bade, in my opinion, is that, delegating it out to somebody who can help you do that. And that way you can focus on your core competency is where we kind of come in. Is for businesses who, if you're not planning on consulting other people on setting up businesses, or you're not going to be a serial entrepreneur where you're going to start building websites, then don't spend 1 million hours learning how to build a website. Just bring somebody in to build a website. And this is what we do. So we have what's called Digital Entrepreneur. It's a program. It's essentially a one-time project where we help do all this setup that we're talking about. How can we figure out best practices for working remote, setting up G Suite for Business, Microsoft 365 is an option as well, getting the right tools in place, doing a more like an audit, like tell me where you are in your software, how can we help you move the right direction, and then looking at your website. We build websites, help with social media, and again, it's a little bit more of the technical side. So we work with your branding strategist or with you on what you're trying to do to make sure the technology works the right way. So those are one-time projects, and then the support plans. We have a month-to-month. We don't do any contracts of just, sometimes you find yourself where you don't need a whole new website, but it'd be nice to have somebody to call when your little details come up. You're running into an issue, you need what we call like add or remove type support, and we help with that. And that's unlimited support. It's just a one monthly fee, and it covers having your essentially digital officer, somebody to call that you'll actually understand about technology. And I put 20%, we're doing 20% off. If either of these, if you want to do the one-time project or ongoing plan for a year, you'll get 20% off as a JF Fabrics affiliate, essentially.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
And in terms of now, you don't have to know anything, or, in terms of what you want to do next. If you're interested, if you just want to chat, you can go to advaifig.com/go-digital. There's a Calendly link, the tool that I mentioned. You can schedule a 30-minute call, and we'll just go through where you're at. There's no, contract or anything like that. No commitment. Let's just talk about technology and what you're trying to do.
Well, I think you're going to be inundated with that one because there's still a lot of great questions. And thank
Yeah,
you again for offering that 20% off to our customers. I mean, I'm sure some of them will definitely take you up on it because, you know, even for the one time or, you know, a few months until they can, you know, get settled in and understand all of this stuff, I'm sure it'd be really, really helpful. So thank you.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I'm just going to run through a few more questions here before we close. So Kathy said that she's, oh, was it Kathy? Sorry, I lost it here. Yeah, it was Kathy. She uses Mac and she is having a hard time. She says it's really difficult to sync with either, I think she's referring to Microsoft or Google.
Maybe we could bring that conversation offline, just in terms of, you know, what you're actually trying to sync. And if you're just, it should work. Like I use an iPhone and it syncs to my iCalendar. So it should kind of, there shouldn't be any issues with that. But tell Kathy, feel free to hit me up and we can talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, and for those, this will be sent out, by the way, for everyone to recap. This is being recorded, and we'll make sure that we put Catherine's contact information on there as well. Will my current files in Google Drive automatically transfer into G Suite?
They won't automatically transfer because if I'm reading that right, you most likely have a Google Drive private or consumer account. So that would be like at gmail.com. And so what you're going to do is create a business account, which is a completely different account. But there is ways, and this is part of, you know, some of the services we do, is there's a way to import all those over. So we would just, and I actually recommend doing that because it also gives you a chance to kind of reorganize any of those files if it's needed and just make sure everything gets brought over correctly.
Great. And then Whitney says she uses forms on her website, client idea books in-house, bookkeeping, invoicing in QuickBooks, and photos in Dropbox. Does she benefit from considering all into one, even though she has them all down?
I mean, at that point, you'd probably just be benefiting from the cost. I mean, if you're reducing the cost of potentially Dropbox, but that's more of a, if you plan on scaling question. So if it's just, you know, depending on how big your team is, if it's just a few people, Dropbox, I think starts at $15 a month. But if you ever grow bigger, you're already paying for G Suite for Business. And if you're using one of their other plans, it includes a terabyte or unlimited data, depending on your plan. So again, if it's working, it would just be long-term cutting down costs, most likely.
Right. And Allison says, can a good effective website be built from using a template, or should it be built from scratch by a web designer? How much should a small business allocate to web design? That's a really good question. And maintenance.
That's a really good question. So it's, for the first part, yes, you can build a really good effective website with a template. And from a behind the scenes like responses, a lot of web developers are using templates. But what they're doing is, and think about what we used to do in technologies, we would hard code everything from scratch. We would build websites. And now what we do is we use a template, and then now we're more customizing it and designing it and making it look pretty. And you want to do that because if you told a web designer, I want a completely customized site, you'd be looking at probably $10,000 or $20,000. So they're using a template, but they're customizing it in such a way that it doesn't look like a template. It's still very much your brand, and it looks like your brand. And so you could do that yourself. You can use templates depending on what tool you're using. Wix does this, Squarespace, WordPress does it. It's a little bit more of a learning curve where you import a template and then you just change the colors, you upload different pictures, and you kind of make it look like a certain way that you want. So it kind of goes back to that comment I made of, if it's something that you enjoy doing and it meets something that maybe you want to have other businesses in the future or more websites, then do that. It's a great skill to have. I love building websites. If it's something that you're going to do one time, it might not be worth the time of doing that.
Right.
Cost-wise, it varies a lot. So it depends a little bit on what you're looking for, integrations that you might have. Our sites usually start at about like $1,000, $1,200 depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's really reasonable. And then, someone's asking if we have any tools available for our customers, so designers to use on Instagram. Yes, we have a lot of content sharing. So we have content that we supply to our customers so that they can use that for Instagram, because coming up with content all the time can be a bit daunting. So by all means, Anne, if you want to reach out to your brand ambassador in your area, and they can help you with that for sure. Nikki says that she has a wallpaper and fabric shop and just started to gain traction before COVID. She's now working on transitioning into e-commerce to help her, but it's obviously a huge undertaking as wallpapers have different colorways and so on. How would you suggest getting started without getting overwhelmed? Wow, I think that might be an offline conversation. What do you think?
That's a pretty big question. Feel free to reach out to me as well. If you're just getting started, you're looking for a e-commerce platform, and that's the primary tool you're looking for, I like Shopify. It's going to be a little bit more expensive month to month than having just a WordPress website, but it's really user-friendly. You can get a template going, and you're able to do some of the maintenance yourself.
Right. These are really great questions, Mike.
These are.
You guys. So Brian is asking, what programs do you suggest for website analytics?
Ooh, that's a good question. I predominantly use Google Analytics. They are, there's a bigger learning curve with them. If you jump into Google Analytics, then you'll see what I'm talking about. There's all these different groups and things that you can create, but there are tools depending on your website that you can bring information from Google Analytics to your website, which someone like that's, for example, that's what we do with our clients, so that all you have to do is just log into your website and you see all of your Google Analytics in a really simple way. But if you need more advanced, then you would go to Google Analytics. Another one is Facebook Pixel. For a while, you can put a Facebook Pixel on different websites, and this allows you to do what's called retargeting and create custom audiences that then allow you to figure out who visited your website. And you can use that for then advertising on Facebook, but from a step back, you can also just get information on those pages.
That's great information, actually. And then Michael is saying he's got a space. I think he's talking about if he's doing like a virtual page or kind of a web page or something to feature his product. Is there anything specific? I think that might be offline too. You're looking, Michael, I think you're looking to have a website that basically, is it an e-com site that you're looking for? Maybe once we send Catherine's information, you can ask her about that. She can get a little bit more specific with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are clients that are ready to go ahead with projects, but with no fabric available, it's frustrating. Yeah. Christine, I hear you. I definitely hear you, and it's frustrating. And a lot of people are saying, even when they get their fabric, there is no place to send it to because the workrooms are closed down and so on. So, yeah, just acknowledging your frustration. We are frustrated too, but understand it's for the greater good. So hopefully another couple of weeks and we'll be on the other side of this thing for both you, Catherine, where you are, and for us here in the GTA as well.
Yeah.
If client makes an error, you won't run the risk of.
Won't you run the risk? Oh, I think in terms of like if the client measures, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true.
And that, that's it's almost depending on different apps that they use. I mean, that a little bit has to do with how you write the contract with your client and what's set up ahead of time. Because that's definitely a risk that you take, but more and more clothing companies are doing this. I've seen suit makers do this where people are measuring themselves, and there's different ways that people are handling that.
I mean, I think we said this last week. This is like the time where you're going to see all this innovation come out.
Yep.
So, we have to really look at it and think totally outside of the box and just think nothing really is impossible.
Yes.
And, don't say no to anything. Just keep thinking. And then, these ideas come. It's so brilliant. And I've seen amazing ideas already happening from this.
I totally agree.
This has been so informative. Great ideas. So thank you, Catherine. What's the best invoicing method that takes partial payments? I don't know if you would know that.
It depends. There's lots of tools that are out there that So it depends a little bit on what you're trying to do. I mean, there's tools like Striven that does that if you're looking for an all-in-one tool versus piecemeal. So maybe send me a message, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing now.
Perfect. Okay. So if someone, I quote, a 5-yard project is looking for a fabric, I think they might like, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So Michael's just explaining himself a little bit more. So I guess online, if he's, quoted on a project and they are looking to get visuals, is there a page that he can use where he can share the photography, as opposed to, I guess, just sending a picture from his phone or wherever he is each time? Is there something that he can use that makes it easy?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on your flow of how many customers you have. Like if you need something to be more automated. I mean, from a more simple standpoint of this kind of gets into having a Google Drive folder that you share with each of your customers and uploading pictures into that folder for a specific project and going back and forth. There's tools like Striven and other tools that allow you to have a customer account where they can actually log in, and then you have sort of like a hub where you can both upload documents and go back and forth together. So it depends a little bit on the tools that you're using, but there's definitely ways that you could, in your website, I don't necessarily think you want that to be on your website where you're uploading pictures on your website for a client. I think you probably want to bring that into more of a project folder, like on Google Drive or on a other tool.
Smart. Yeah, Google Drive makes sense. Karen, you're right. Karen's saying, between, software for meetings and CRM and marketing and all that other stuff, how does anyone actually
Yes.
run a design business? And I guess, Karen, that's what we're saying is these things are necessary. Once you find out what to use, it becomes really easy and you find out what works for you best. And that's really why we brought Catherine in, because, she has explained a lot of this, but also she can also help you for, actually not really a huge cost, to help you navigate through what's going to work best for you. And really the consult is there for you. So if you just want to reach out to her and she can consult and kind of maybe get you in a better place, I would really recommend that you do that. How do we charge, especially if the client is doing some of our physical task measuring? Thank you. That, Linda, that's more of a, a question, I guess, that you would ask your peers. I don't know that Catherine would have that answer, but I think, I think there's ways of adapting those costs. So, and I think people are more willing actually to do that as well. So, yeah. Oh, Karen, yeah, answering the question. Great information. Thanks so much.
And Lisa, is it okay if I add something to that comment about charging, or just in terms of having clients measure things? I know that that's kind of maybe a concern, and this came up in another group that we were discussing of, in some ways, I'm a busy mom. Especially before all this, I was working outside of the home, then I'd come home, but now it's, we're working, we're maybe doing e-learning, teaching, spending time with family. But that some people that I know, if I wanted to do design work, it's not necessarily on a normal schedule. Maybe it is 8 o'clock at night. And this gets back to that second challenge of, work-life balance versus work-life integration. And what does work look like as we move forward? That as a client, as a potential client, I would almost like the flexibility of, you're going to help me. Like, you've set up some type of process where I can actually do something other than just sit here and watch Netflix. And I'm totally fine with that, and especially if you're flexible to, you're going to do this on a Saturday morning or 8 o'clock at night because my kids are asleep. And I would love to measure things for you that, something that might seem like a hassle because it's helping you out because they're going to have to measure themselves, actually might be a convenience to the client. Like, so kind of figuring out what they're looking for is, it can be a win-win in a lot of situations.
Right. And I think, now is the time that we were saying, people are a lot more open to doing things differently, right? Because
Yes.
and so moving forward, a lot of the things that we're doing now might be slightly adapted, or not, sorry, adapted, but changed. But this whole, digital world that we're all kind of thrown into now, I think will move forward quite heavily in the future, because there's a lot of benefit to it. So Allison is saying that thank you for the offers, by the way. Definitely something to consider, and I would highly recommend that you do consider them. Thank you for the information, very informative. Amanda, I need tips to get over my fear of the camera. In person, I'm super social, but when it comes to camera and videos, I lose motivation. You know, we were talking about that and saying, you know, it'd be nice if like Zoom had like filters, you know, like Instagram filters and Snapchat filters. So if you don't want to put makeup on that day, you
Oh,
can
that's
just
funny.
put on and so on. And I can imagine it's coming. So
Yeah.
Zoom, if you're listening, I think it's a thing. And then
And practice. I mean, my only thought on that is practice. Like, just make videos yourself. You'll get more comfortable talking in front of a camera. And then when it's a person, I mean, I put this as a note, but going back to what would you do in person, have an icebreaker. Hold a meeting. If you're having a meeting and maybe it's a couple people, just like you would have an in-person icebreaker, what could you do to just say, if you're uncomfortable, they're probably uncomfortable. What can we do to just kind of make this fun and have that initial icebreaker?
that's actually a really good idea. And you know, if I'm honest, when we first started doing Zoom meetings in a much larger way, especially for cocktails and stuff, I've used them for meetings before, or WebEx was another one, but for cocktails, it seemed a little odd for everybody in the beginning. And then we've been doing it now for the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I guess, and it's starting to feel quite normal. And yeah, so I think the more to your point, the more you use it, the easier it becomes for sure. And then I'm just going to make sure we've got everyone's questions here. What if you're ready to do this type of system going virtual, etc., but your clients are not set up and maybe are in their 50s and not great with a computer? Okay, I'm in my 50s. Just saying. I, I don't know. I mean, you can speak to that if you want, Catherine. I would say there's not too many people these days who don't have access in some way. Would you agree?
Yeah, like work, it doesn't have to be Zoom. So I've done client calls where Zoom was frustrating because they had to download the Zoom app because they were only using their mobile phone. And then I asked them, do you have an iPhone? Like, what are you talking on to me? And they said, yeah. I was like, let's just FaceTime.
Right.
We jumped on a FaceTime. And so I do think you can adjust the technology and they hadn't actually been comfortable with FaceTime calls. And so I was like, all you have to do is push the green button when it shows up on your screen. And I think that you just went from being a designer to a tech consultant in the smallest way, and that will create incredible value to that person, because to them, they're like learning things that they know. And usually when people get frustrated with technology, they'll make the comment, I know I need to do this. Like, I'm frustrated, but I know this is the future. I know I'm getting value from this. So I think their options are either, okay, you know what, we're going to work together when we get through this COVID, let's meet in person. Or if you can have patience and kind of walk them through that technology yourself, if it's something where you can just FaceTime instead of Zoom, they're going to be really appreciative of that.
Right. Good point. And adding value for sure is key. Karen is wondering what the advantage is to the paid G Suite versus the free versions. I think probably just more sophistication.
The
Maybe.
biggest thing to me is, one is, how do you want your brand to be represented? If you want to have @gmail.com, that's going to be the free consumer version. If you want to be @mybusinessname.com, you're going to have to pay for a business account. And that one change, in my opinion, will bring your business to an actual business. Even though you might be a business, but when people see that email, it helps. Not all the time. I'm not saying @Gmail is bad if you have that already. I'm just meaning it helps kind of bring that branding in it, because I immediately see at your website and I know what your website is. I can go to that, website.com, and now I'm seeing your website. It's almost advertising it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then outside of that, it gives you some flexibility to, you can start bringing team members in. You can have a virtual assistant come in and just add a $6 a month account for them, and they have tools, access to everything that you give them permission to.
Right. And then Kathy is asking if we have API files for ecom. Kathy, yeah, reach out to your brand ambassador and we can talk through that with you for sure. Deborah, can you recommend time tracker apps, especially now that we are sourcing online?
I want to say Harvest is the one that we use a program called Striven, so that has built-in time tracking. You can do that through Asana. So a lot of these project management tools like Rike and Asana actually have that built into it, where you could create a field or you can time track in it. And then there's add-ons like Harvest and other tools. So there are a couple tools out there. Harvest is the one that I probably recommend if you just want to check out an example.
Right, right. And last question or comment, maybe. I use QuickBooks for my desktop, and then I email them. I have to manually input 50% deposit and then have to email them again when the balance is due. Just wondering if there's any designers out there that are using something a little bit easier, more fresh, more updated, or Catherine, if you have any thoughts on that.
So I have to manually put. Yeah, there are some tools against Driven, just because I know that one does it. We're partnered with them, so I've used them to do that. And I want to say Wave. There are a couple tools out there. Hit me up, send me a message. That way I can make sure I give you accurate information.
Great. And I think we have got all the questions and answers. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think we've addressed all of these. I know 70-year-old that can do this sort of thing.
Someone said Wave. That's okay. That's what I was gonna.
Wave.
Wave for that last question. I thought they did it.
Right. Okay. I think that's it.
Awesome.
Good. Well, Catherine, oh my goodness, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, it was lots of fun, and we may bring you on again. Maybe we'll speak about something more specifically.
Yeah.
I imagine we're going to get a lot of questions coming out of this. So, but honestly, guys, do take Catherine up on her consult. She is awesome. I've worked with her personally and professionally, and she's very good, very easy, and obviously very, very smart. So Catherine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. This was awesome. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks everyone, and watch.
Thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out.